Listeners, are you ready for your monthly literary adventure? We now have the BFF Book Club. Join us each month to explore a new book. After reading, connect with fellow book lovers and meet the author in a live interview. Can't make it live? Don't worry. We'll send you the recording. You can find all the upcoming book club selections at www.bookishflights.com/read/BFF book club. Hi, I'm Cara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights. In each episode, I chat with one bookish guest as we take some time to sample and savor the pairing recommendations from their bookish flight. We hope to give you suggestions to cultivate your TBR list and nurture your leisure time through books. In today's episode, I am chatting with Alison Solway. Alison lives in Toronto, Canada with her family and starts every day with a strong cup of coffee. She is passionate about fitness and reading and believes that there is nothing more powerful than sharing our experiences. Her memoir, The Miles We Run, Lessons from the Arena of Resilience, marked her debut as an author. Alison's story is a testament to the strength and resilience that lies within us all. Welcome to the show, Alison.
Oh, thanks so much, Cara. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I am so excited to have you. I have my cup of strong coffee here with you this
So
morning.
do
I love
I.
that mug. That's really cool.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I am loving your bio here. There's so many things that as I was reading that, I'm like, oh, okay, the arena of resistance. We are strength and resistance. And my tagline for the show is that we all have a story to tell, and we can tell that through our favorite books. And so you're essentially saying that too, right? We're sharing our stories.
Yes, absolutely. The lessons from the arena of resilience is I positioned it that way because there's a quote from Theodore Roosevelt that really stuck with me. And it's at the beginning of my book about being in the arena and not being in the cheap seats, watching what happens in the
Oh, yeah.
arena and living your life, as a warrior for good and for bad in that arena. And it's directed towards men, but I changed it in my book. I altered his quote and in the footnote, obviously stated that I made it for women
Yeah.
because we also live our lives in the arena, and that is where we build our resilience. And the miles we run is, my memoir of it chronicles my path to motherhood through surrogacy, and it also encompasses the lessons that I learned during that journey training for the New York City Marathon, and how the qualities that I needed to call upon to get through surrogacy, I also used in training and completing the New York City Marathon.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know those paths are so vastly different. They're totally different endeavors, but they required very similar discipline and patience and endurance and courage to get through.
Yeah.
And the metaphor of marathon worked beautifully throughout our surrogacy journey.
Wow. So were you doing those simultaneously?
No, so we
Okay.
went through surrogacy 25 years ago.
Okay.
I was able to carry my first child. I had a very challenging pregnancy. I almost died
Wow.
giving birth to her. And then I was told about a month later, I was diagnosed with a genetic condition. And as a result of that, I couldn't carry any more children. And
Okay.
25
Wow.
years ago, surrogacy wasn't really spoken about. It was really shrouded in silence,
Yeah.
and there weren't many resources in Canada or the US. And, the internet wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
So it was a very unique time to have to figure out how I was going to build the family that I had always wanted.
Yeah.
And even though I had one beautiful, healthy child, I grew up with a brother and a sister who I'm exceptionally close with. And I wanted that for my daughter as well. I
Yeah.
wanted more children. And, the Miles We Run is about how we were able to achieve that dream. It was a very bumpy path.
Wow.
So,
And I imagine
yes,
when you go through something like that, right? And you're saying, okay, back 25 years when information was not readily available or offered, and then you're like, well, I don't want someone else to go through this story, right? Like, I want to give the information that I've learned so someone else can use it themselves.
right, right. Um, so what I think I do with the Miles We Run is I give hope to those who are on this journey of infertility and or surrogacy. Um, it took us 4 years to have our sons. And it was laden with working with different carriers at different clinics. What could go wrong did go wrong.
Wow.
I write about this throughout the entire memoir. I had journaled our entire experience 25 years ago.
Wow.
I knew that I had a story 25 years ago where, when we were done uh, having our family. However, it wasn't the right time to write a book. I had
Yeah.
4 small children and I put those journals away.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing about the Miles We Run is even though it's my narrative, I my goal and the feedback I've been getting from readers is that when somebody reads The Miles We Run, they're able to reflect on their own resilience based on their miles. We've
Yeah.
all run marathons,
Hmm.
maybe not literally, but we've all overcome obstacles and hurdles in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And I think this gives the reader an opportunity to reflect on their own inner strength and how they've shown up for themselves. Because a lot of times we don't reflect back on what we've been through.
Yeah. And how far we've come.
That is exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. And I think
So,
you can't, I think about this a lot because I'm trying to teach my younger kids right now, right, how to have this inner strength and this inner confidence, right? So I think a lot about, well, how do I provide that? And a lot of what I keep coming back to is it's only through experience that you can really see this. And I think you only know your inner strength when you're actually going through the trial. So unfortunately, we kind of have to go through the dark to see that in ourselves.
absolutely. That's very valid. And that's how you build resilience.
Yeah.
Resilience is a muscle. You build resilience by getting through challenges. That's what makes us strong.
Yeah.
And that's what gets us stronger and helps us recognize that we can get through and over the next obstacle in our life.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting experience when I decided to, my daughter was already in university, and then my sons were just coming to the end of their high school education,
Yeah.
where I pulled out the journals and I thought, okay, maybe it's time to revisit this, and maybe I should write this now because I had more time.
Yeah.
Um, and it was exceptionally cathartic to look back and to read these journals because when we were going through surrogacy, I never looked back. I had tunnel vision on, you know, achieving a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to have another baby. And I never really truly reflected on the journey that brought us to our family of 6.
Yeah.
And the reread of those journals was exceptionally therapeutic for me because it really allowed me to recognize what we had been through and where a lot of my strength had come from.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking as you're talking, like, thank you so much for writing this, because I think even myself, right, and others who have not been through surrogacy, I don't think we even understand the tip of the iceberg of probably the emotional journey that you went through in this as
Very
well.
emotional. Very emotional. I'm gonna get emotional. Um, it's one thing to make a choice not to have more children.
Yeah.
It's another thing for that choice to be taken from you.
Yeah.
And having to find a way to make your dream happen isn't always easy. But I was very diligent. I was very disciplined. I really knew that what I wanted. We had the privilege of a very supportive family. There's a lot that is involved in infertility and going through IVF and in hiring, a surrogate and finding the right surrogate and the agencies and the clinics. And I recognize that someone may think the miles we run, would appeal to somebody if they were going through fertility treatments or if they, had run a marathon. But most people haven't gone through surrogacy and most people won't run a marathon.
Yeah.
But again, most people, all people, have been through something in their lives that they've had to overcome.
Yeah.
And, I ask a question at the end of every chapter, I call them miles, to the reader for them to reflect on something that I've just spoken of in that chapter and how they can attribute it maybe to their own life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, that's the beauty of reading, though, too, is the empathy that we can build, because I'm not going to we'll use miles. I'm not going to walk a mile in your shoes, but to go through this, I can gain empathy for you and for someone else that's going through that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I what my readers are telling me, and it's been so beautiful for me to hear, is that, they see themselves. So not only are they empathetic, as you said, to my story, but they see
Yeah.
themselves in my story,
Yeah.
but for something totally different that has nothing to do with surrogacy or running a marathon.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm actually a pelvic floor physical therapist by trade.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and I was secretly giggling in like a good way, because I cannot tell you how many times, it's like almost verbatim, I tell every pregnant patient that would come in, if I got them early enough, I'm like, pregnancy is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, it was my saying. I'm like, you have to start training today.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
But I was kind of giggling along in the back of like, gosh, even as a medical provider, I use like
Right.
the marathon example to pregnancy. And I tell every patient that if I can get you early enough, like, we're going to be training, you can't
Right.
start and expect to have, what
That's
down the
very
line.
true. That's a
Yeah.
great metaphor because I think you can apply that to life, can't you?
Yeah.
That life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So you really want to take it one step at a time and you want to enjoy the steps
Yeah.
because this is something else I speak of in the miles we run about. So many of us focus on big milestones. Once I achieve that big milestone, it's actually all the small steps that get you to the milestone that deserve acknowledgement because that's where the journey is. The
Yeah.
journey isn't achieving the milestone. The journey isn't crossing the finish line. That's just part of the journey. The journey is actually, what got you to that finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. And digging in on the days that you don't want to.
Absolutely. Many of those,
Yeah.
especially training for a marathon. Lots of those.
Yeah. Well, you've already kind of mentioned a few things that have happened for you in writing this book, but what have you learned about yourself through writing it?
Oh, I learned so many things. Writing this book has been one of the best experiences of my life. Um, Celebrating the small victories, recognizing the progress. Um, it's not about perfection. I'm a very type A personality. So, you know, that first draft was nothing like the finished product, and acknowledging that that first draft was terrible,
Yeah.
and it had to be terrible to make it good. So, this is my first book. So I had never done anything like this before. So it as wonderful as it was frustrating too at times, just maybe not being able to write a sentence the way I wanted it to come out, or it didn't convey what I wanted it to convey. And giving myself a little bit of grace
Yeah.
in that it will eventually come out the way you want it to. Maybe not today or tonight. I did a lot of my writing at night,
Yeah.
just with, wanting to be present with my kids that were still at home. And, storytelling is healing. It was really healing writing this book. I didn't realize until I started doing it that I really hadn't grieved my loss of not being able to have kids. So this has helped.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's so beautiful that you had healing along the journey. And I think that that is so important, right? Allowing your heart to kind of, I always think of kintsugi. Do you know what that is?
No, no,
It's
I
where
don't.
they fix pottery, and I don't know if they still do this. They think it's more of like an ancient practice,
Okay.
but they fix pottery and they put pieces of gold where the pottery had broken
Oh,
apart. And I always think of that as our hearts when we're allowed to heal, is like now we have these little shards of gold within our heart when we can
right,
heal there. And
right.
it's more beautiful than it was.
Of course, of course. How lovely.
Yeah, yeah, you'll have to look it up because the pottery is
Yeah,
very beautiful.
right. I love that, how you put gold in almost the cracks.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And it's called kintsugi. So you'll have to look it up.
Okay.
It's very
Thank
beautiful.
you for
You're
sharing that.
welcome. So, so this was kind of, this story kind of stemmed from, I have a story to tell, but did you have, like, when you were younger, were you like, I want to be a writer, or did you have a history of writing or any of that?
I've I've always enjoyed writing. I used to write newsletters. I'm in the fitness industry. I'm a
Okay.
personal trainer. I have a platform since COVID when things changed a little
Yeah.
bit, ABS Fitness, that I have memberships in Canada and the US.
Okay.
And so I write a weekly newsletter on that. And I used to write newsletters back in my old career in reports. I have a master's of science actually in environmental management. So
Okay.
I used to work for an environmental engineering firm. This is going back, pre-kids.
Yeah.
And I used to do writing for them, but no, I never imagined that I would write a book. That was never on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I just never really thought about it. I only started thinking about it when I completed those journals, for during our surrogacy process, because that first journal was intended to be a keepsake for our future child.
Yeah.
You know, the love that we had for them prior to their conception, and one journal turned into two journals, turned into three journals. I never imagined the story would unfold the way it
Yeah.
did. So I felt that I had a story to share. It just 25 years ago wasn't the time to share it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can resonate with that now with my age. I'm like, I couldn't possibly, people ask me that a lot. Like, do you want to write a book? I'm like, it's just not a time in my life to take that on.
Right, right, right. But
So,
if it's something that you want to do, you'll find when it's the right time. You'll know when it's the right time, and then you'll do that if that's something you want for yourself.
yeah. I think that's something that I've never appreciated that what I was going to have to do in motherhood, right? Is like kind of have these boundaries on my time. Like, I can't let everything pull me away because I want to be present with my kids. But you kind of have to battle these things. Nope, I can't take that on right now. That's not in
Right,
my
right.
bandwidth.
Well, I pivoted my whole career because I wanted to be present with my children.
Yeah.
If I had stayed in environmental engineering, I don't think I would have been able to be, well, I don't think, I know I wouldn't have able to have been as present. And that's when I pivoted towards the fitness industry. I had always been actively physical. Um, but I felt that if I, you know, was able to certify myself and get different accreditations to teach classes and spin and group fitness, that I could be more present at home. And that's what I wanted for myself.
Yeah.
I sacrificed my environmental career, so to speak, because I wanted, and I shouldn't even say sacrifice. I made the change because I
Hmm.
wanted to be present and be around for my children.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate that I was able to do that.
Yeah. That's exactly where I am right now.
Yeah, so
So,
I understand. I understand. And you say it beautifully that there's definitely time boundaries. It's when you're in the throes of motherhood when your kids are young, it's very hard to carve out time for yourself.
yeah.
And if you do, it's you're exhausted and you just want like a few hour, a little bit of sleep or, a cup of tea or coffee that's undisturbed,
Yeah.
so I remember that very well. And now being on the flip side of that, three of my four kids are away in university. One of them is traveling right now.
Okay.
She's done her master's in marine biology and
Wow.
she's figuring out what her next steps are going to be. And I have a lot more time on my hands, so I've had an opportunity to really look inward and see how I want to change and kind of pivot my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Now your world, like the world's your oyster a little bit again, right? Like, okay,
A
what do I
little
do?
bit,
Yeah.
yes. It takes adjusting though. It's hard. It's a hard stage. It's a
Yeah.
hard adjustment when your sole focus is your children and then all of a sudden, okay, who am I?
Yeah.
And you want to become a little bit reflective. I speak a bit about that in the miles we run, you
Yeah.
know.
I'll have to definitely look into that because I've talked about it a lot on the show of like when I started staying at home with my kids, there was that big identity crisis almost of like, who do I say that I am? Like, I'm not working as a physical therapist, so who do I say that I am? And you think you're always been told to have this elevator pitch of who you are, right? And I'm like,
Right.
who am I? I'm just, and like, I don't feel like our societies value stay-at-home moms as much as they should. And so it
Oh,
like
I
is like
totally agree.
a title that's like, do I put that out there? What do I say? Like,
You're doing really important work.
oh
Really
yeah.
important
I'm
work.
busier. I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, I am busier than I ever was when I worked full time.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And then you wonder like how did I even do that?
Yeah.
You know? How so
Absolutely. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk
absolutely.
about who you are as a reader. What genres do you enjoy reading?
I I'm like across the board. I am across the board. I love a good memoir. I love good nonfiction. I love uh a good fiction book. And recently, actually, I realized that I love the fantasy genre, which I can't believe. Um, my eldest son and daughter read The Fourth Wing
Oh, yeah.
by Rebecca
Woo.
Yarros.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, what's the hype?
Oh, yeah.
I could not put it down. So, and then I read the next one. And that's the other thing. I'm terrible at remembering names. And then I'm so excited though for January for Onyx Storm. I know
Yeah.
that one. I forget the second book in the series. It's like 3-part.
I know. I can't think of it right now either. I'm like, gosh, and I read it,
Okay,
but
so
I
good.
can't think
Like,
of it right now either.
so yeah, you know what? For me, a good book truly is one that you can't put down, but you don't want it to end.
Yeah.
And if I'm in, it doesn't matter what genre it is. If I'm reading a book that I feel that way, then it's like I get excited. And I thought about that when I was writing The Miles We Run, because I wanted the reader to feel that.
Yeah.
And I think I've achieved it based on what readers are telling me. But it was so important for me to um give that feeling to a reader that here's a story that, I don't want it to end, but I can't put this book down.
Yeah.
So
I think that's why memoir is such a beautiful genre because it's to me it's approachable nonfiction. Where like
right,
you'll hear someone say, I don't like nonfiction, right? Or it's not I don't read
right,
nonfiction. And I'm like,
right,
try a memoir because it's told like a story. And so I
right.
think for someone that is so maybe fiction based in their reading, memoir makes that nonfiction piece accessible because it reads
Right.
like a story.
And it's true.
Yeah,
It's like a true story. So yeah, no, I love a good memoir. I sometimes find it's hard to find a good memoir
I agree.
that that you just don't want to put down. But they are around.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so baffled by how much I'm loving. So right now I'm reading A Court of Mist. I've written it down
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm so bad
Echomath,
at
right? A Court of
A
Mist and
Court of Mist
Fury.
and Fury. Yes,
Yep.
book 2 of
Okay.
Sarah Moss
Okay.
Mass. Okay. So I've already read Thorn. Oh, I apologize for
You're good.
not
A
being
Court
able
of
to
Thorn
tell.
and Roses.
Roses.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
I was like, I'll
Yes.
help you out. I don't know any of the other ones. I think that's probably the only two I could spout off, but
Okay. So, and then I have the third one. So I'm really enjoying this series. If I'm being 100% honest, I'm not loving it as much as the fourth wing,
uh-huh.
but
I've
I
never
do
said
like
this
it.
on air, but I tried this series and I actually DNF'd it in book two.
Oh,
But then someone
okay.
told me because this is what I do. I was at Discount Tire this week.
Yes.
And some girl rolls in with two thick books. And I was like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Oh,
know her
that's
from Adam,
awesome.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I love that you brought your books to Discount Tire. And she goes,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm almost done. She was reading Zodiac Academy. She's like, I'm
Okay.
almost done with this one. So I didn't want to be sitting here and not have the next one. I mean, there must have been 800 pages between the stack of
Right.
books she had.
Right. Right.
And she mentioned, long story short, that she was like, stick through the second book. She's like, that's where it really starts to get good. Because we got to talking about that series, and I'm like, I just couldn't get into it, and I know it's a commitment because it's like 6 books, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm like, if I'm not in this by book 2, But
Right.
she said, stick through to the end of book 2. She said there's something that happens in the plot at the end that really grabs you. She didn't tell me, no spoiler, which is good. But so I'm
Right.
like, okay, maybe I
Right.
need to pick it back up.
So I will say I'm literally in the middle of book 2. It is getting better.
Okay.
It is getting better. It doesn't engage me like
Fourth
the
Wing did.
fourth wing did. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I like they had me in the first like I don't know 10 pages. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how much I'm already loving this."
Yeah.
I said this I could already tell that this was going to be like I cannot stop reading, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Like type of book. But so this is different. This I can put down and pick up, but I'm certainly not at the point where I'd close it and not look at it again,
Yeah.
which I do now. I never used to. I used to feel so guilty if I didn't finish a book that I started.
Same.
And then I was like, no, this is my time, which is exceptionally valuable. and I've given it a fair shot, so like a quarter to a halfway
Hmm.
in, and I am really not feeling it, I'm just gonna be okay with not finishing it.
Yeah,
That took a lot.
it does. I feel
So
like you have to learn that skill.
yes, you really do, because you feel like guilt. Firstly, you've purchased the book and you want to read it to the end. And secondly, you want to give it the respect it deserves, because
Yeah.
maybe, just maybe, it's gonna
Pick up.
pick up.
Yeah.
But now I don't. Now I'm like, okay,
Maybe
I'm
motherhood
go.
taught us that because that's really when I was able to start being like, no, I just don't have the time. There's too many books
So
out here.
true.
So
So
I
true.
don't have the option of well, I do have the option of continuing, but like, nope, there's another book out there that's going to be for me. And this
Right.
one's just not for me. That's really how I look at it because back to that series, that is an insanely popular series. It sometimes makes me
Right.
question, like, well, am I wrong that I didn't like get
Right.
into it? But
Right.
again, it's just not for me. Could be
Yeah,
if,
no, I totally hear you,
yeah.
because I was expecting to read it and have the same feels as I did for Rebecca Yaros's series, which I'm not.
Yeah.
And anyway,
Well, send me
but
an email when you're done and let me know.
okay, I will. I will. I will.
So, well, you have been so gracious to bring a book flight with you today. Can you tell us how you chose these books?
So I chose these books because one is a memoir that I loved. It's a book that I've actually reread. Um, One is a book that just was feel good, and I really loved the main character. And the other is probably one of my favorite books of all time, and I just wanted to share.
Awesome. Well, what's the first book you brought today?
So, Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. It's a touching memoir about the life lessons shared between Mitch Albom and his former Professor Maury Schwartz, as Maury faces the end of his life with wisdom, humor, and grace. And it's just such a profound story of that's emotional and funny, and really brings an awareness about how one should live their life, and the gratitude that both Maury had for the life he lived, and how he helped Mitch recognize the gratitude that he should live with.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I love
So,
when there's that older perspective because they can bring such wisdom to the
such
table.
wisdom. I'm not a huge rereader, but I have definitely read that more than once. So
Yeah.
maybe even three times.
Well, and I feel like the
Um,
lessons, right? Like they apply at different stages of our life in a different way, too.
exactly. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Okay, so that was Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. What's the next book
Yeah.
you brought?
Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. So this was one of those books that I could not put down. I loved. Um, so I thought it was witty. I thought it was inspirational. I thought Elizabeth Zott, who's the main character, was just such an unconventional woman scientist in the 1960s. She was so ahead of her time, defied societal norms, was brilliant in the lab, and then, comes into this cooking show with a completely different take on cooking. And I love to cook. And, I think about her sometimes, the character, when I'm in the kitchen,
I love
because
it.
chemistry was not my strong suit for sure, but it was just such a great way to enlighten about cooking. I thought it was brilliant. And I laughed and I cried. It was great.
I loved that 630 as a dog for listeners if you haven't
Yes.
read it. And 630 was a character. And I
Yeah.
loved that. Like it made me want to seek out other books where animals have a voice and a character within them.
Yes. 100%. There was nothing that I didn't love about that story. It
Yeah.
was just, it was, I didn't anticipate also loving it as much as I did. And I will say I watched the Apple series with Brie
Okay.
Larson,
Yeah.
And I thought they did a really respectable job because
Oh, good to know.
usually
Okay.
I don't love how a book translates into, the screen at all. But
Yeah.
I thought Brie Larson really captured her well.
Okay.
So,
I
but I
haven't
was
watched
happy
it.
to have read it first, not to have seen the show
Yeah.
and then read. So, because I like to, create my own movie in my head.
Same. Same. And I think there was a series I love. It's set in Canada, actually. We can talk about it after. But I watched the trailer for the show when it came out, and like the characters were nothing like what I had made in the movie in my head. I'm like, I can't watch it. Nope.
Right, 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 right. It sometimes ruins it,
Yeah. I
you
could have been a
know?
great series, but I didn't like just watching the trailer. I was like, no, that's not what I envisioned. So I
Right,
can't, I'm
right,
not
right.
going to do
That's
it.
so
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, I like my characters better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
funny.
that was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. And then what's the last book you brought today?
So the last book I brought today is The Nightingale by Christian Hanna, and that is probably one of my all-time favorite books. Definitely top three.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah, it's a gripping story that takes place during World War II about the sacrifices and the courage two sisters have um, to fight for survival in Nazi occupied France. And it's just such a heroic demonstration of love and bravery. And these two women are just so remarkable. And I sobbed like reading this book, like not just like, oh my, like literally ugly cry.
Yeah,
Could not breathe, cry
yeah.
at the end of this book.
Her books make you do that, I think.
Yeah, no, it was phenomenal, phenomenal.
Yeah, I read this. And I think I also loved it because one of the first books I did as an audiobook. I think maybe not, but like the first one that I loved that I was like, okay, this audiobook, there's a real thing here.
Right.
And but I read it, it was probably 2017. And I've lately been considering like I should go back and reread this because is it still like it's definitely my top one or two books of all time.
Right.
And I'm like, should I go back and reread this? But I kind of don't want to. Like I kind of want it just to stay in that pinnacle of a spot.
Right. Right. I hear you. I hear you. I've only read it once too.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would reread it. I'd be worried too, I think.
Well, and it's not that it needs to be like usurped. It's right. It's not that, but
Right.
it's such a beautiful story in my mind and I'm like, do I just leave it there as that?
Yes. I think I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah.
I am. I'm with you. I think
Yeah.
I want to leave it there. Yes.
Okay, so that was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. So how I love to end our show here is with our bonus pairings, and they're just a speed round of questions. I know you answered kind of, but I'm wondering if in general, are you a rereader?
Not often.
Okay,
I'm not often a rereader. There are some books that I will reread. As I indicated, Tuesdays with
sure.
Maury, I've reread. But no, not often, unless the book has really, truly resonated with me, and I feel that I could gain value in a reread.
Yeah.
So The Choice by Edith Egger, Brene Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection.
Hmm.
Sometimes I found myself at different stages over the course of my life that I've needed to reread books that have had a profound impact on me.
Yeah.
So that's when a book will get a reread,
Yeah.
or at least parts of it will, maybe not the entire book.
Sure. And that
Yes.
makes sense too. Like again, like something that you're really gaining knowledge or a way to look at the world or your life, right? To
Right.
read that
But I
again.
have reread The Miles We Run about 500 times. Does that count?
You know what I meant to say that we didn't say is that I bet you could also add a chapter about writing a book as a marathon too.
Oh, 100%
Yeah.
actually. 100%
That
actually.
could be
Yes.
your addendum
Yes.
for you like put out
Yes.
another version.
Yes. That's true. That's
So,
funny.
all right. Well, what is one book you've read that has changed your life?
Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
For me, the circumstances of his life and his story that he was able to find meaning in the darkest moments of his life and determine that how he responded was his choice
Hmm.
and live that way when he was, freed from the concentration camps of Nazi occupied Germany. Um, that whole story just really gave me such perspective on life because what he had to endure, I don't know how you come out of something like that with looking at not being angry, not being bitter, not being just feeling like the world owes you everything because you lived in hell.
Yeah.
And you're able to turn the circumstances of your life around and know that the way you respond to what happens to you is a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking as you were talking about this one, I feel like I read books like that, and I did with the Nightingale too, which I find interesting that we're talking about both of these, is I always read those books and think, would I behave the same? Would I be able to do these heroic, courageous things that people were doing if I was faced with the same set of circumstances? And I think that in both of these books, you can look at the story and challenge yourself.
Absolutely. Yes, very true. And I like a book that challenges, the way I think or the way I feel or makes me question how I respond and how I act and how I internalize in my life.
Yeah.
So, Man's Search for Meaning, Tuesdays with Morrie, The Gifts of Imperfection, Edith Eger's The Choice, like all these, so many. I try and, for the most part, get some sort of nugget
Yeah.
out of many of my reads. Obviously, not the fantasy series, but for the
They're
books like
courageous in those books.
yeah, yes, I suppose. But like even lessons in chemistry, I so respected this woman's strength as as just being such a pioneer in the 1960s. I love the way the character was developed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really important to reflect internally when that's a sign of a good book. I
Yeah.
hope that's what the Miles We Run it is for my readers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Gain something for yourself within it.
absolutely.
Yeah. Where is your favorite place to read?
I would have to say probably at night in bed.
Okay.
I love closing my day, the chaos of the day, getting into a story that's either thought-provoking or an escape that, it's the quiet of the night and just allows me to peacefully transform into, a restful state.
Yeah.
So I think bed, it calms my mind, it recenters my focus, and yes,
Yeah.
bed.
It's a great way to close the night out.
Yes.
Lastly, what are you reading next?
So I am reading A Court of Wings and Ruin because
Ooh,
that is
okay.
the next of, as long as I continue with this series, which I think I've committed to. So that is what I'm going to read next. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm so excited for Onyx Storm.
Yeah, as I
January, that
was
comes out.
saying
I've
that, I'm
already
like, it's not
pre-ordered.
quite there. We're not quite to the time frame where you could say that's your next to read yet, but
You're okay, fair
almost.
enough. Fair enough. Almost, almost. But I have it pre-ordered, so I'm very excited. But I'm not a two-book type person. So I know that I have to be done this
There you go.
series prior to engaging that.
Clear your
So
schedule.
yes, yes, I'm scheduled.
Wonderful. Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for coming on the show with me. I know your time is very precious, and I appreciate all you've given me.
Oh, thank you, Kara. It's been a great conversation. Really, it
Awesome.
truly has.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Alison Beater Solway, including her book flight of rereadable books that she has loved. Find the full list of show notes at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.